This is Timeout with uSTADIUM. This podcast is for you sports superfans, for you sports debaters, and yes, you, the sports opinionators or hot takers. We take your calls live on air and answer questions directly from the uSTADIUM app. Get it at uSTADIUM.com. Join in on the conversation with Brianna, Nick, and Frankie. Timeout with uSTADIUM starts now.
What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Timeout with uSTADIUM. As you heard in our amazing intro, I am Brianna here with Nick and Frankie, and this is the show. So as always, make sure you're liking our streams, subscribing, everything, following us on Twitter, Instagram, downloading the uSTADIUM app. Everything under the sun when it comes to social media. Wherever you can find us, make sure that you are following us. So, fellas, let's hop right in. We had some
Wait, Brie, you just got back from Miami. You have to tell us something about Miami.
I just got back from Miami. Okay, so I just got back from Miami. I went this past weekend. It was amazing. The weather was beautiful. Drank a lot.
How was the party scene? That's what I want to know, you know.
It was fun. The whole thing was really fun. I didn't see any celebrities though, which I was a little surprised about, considering like the places we went.
Nick, are you surprised you haven't seen a celebrity in West Harrison, New York?
I have actually. I seen Joe Girardi recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
You were in South Beach. You should have went to Brickell. We were speaking.
I know, but the weather was too nice to not be by a pool or on the beach or anything. So I'll just have to go back. That's all. But all right, enough about my vacation. Let's get into it. So we had some exciting NFL news today, despite the fact that it's kind of like the dead time in the league. Next season, the 2022 season, the alternate helmets are coming back, which means we are going to get the Throwbacks. We're going to get the Pats Reds with Pat the Patriot. We're going to get the Bucks Creamsicles. We're going to get those awesome Kelly Green Eagles jerseys. I'm so excited. There's so many throughout the league that are just like top notch that it sucks we haven't been able to see them for the last, feels like forever. So with that being said, we are going to run a throwback jersey contest, and it's going to kind of tie into our first segment. So what Nick and Frankie are going to do is they are going to give me and all of you the top 2 underrated and overrated players in NFL history. So I'm talking about past players, not current, because we're doing throwbacks. So top 2 overrated, top 2 underrated. And then what you guys are going to do is give me in the comments your best argument for either an underrated or overrated player. I'm going to pick the best one. Whoever it is wins the jersey. And it'll be announced at some point throughout the show, so you got to make sure you stay on. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, you do not get to claim the prize. And I think that's everything when it comes to the rules. So, you guys, let's go top 2 underrated first. So, Frankie, you want to start underrated?
Yeah. I'm going to do it a little bit differently, though. I don't follow rules usually, so I'm going to do this a little bit different. Yeah.
Naturally.
But I'm going to give you somebody in the past, and then in the current past. So to start, my most current past underrated player of all time, and this guy to me is literally one of the best players I've ever seen step on a football field from a defensive standpoint. He changed the game in terms of how safeties, I think, are playing the game now. I've never seen someone over a 2-year stretch impress me more at the safety position than this guy. And who I'm talking about is Bob Sanders. Bob Sanders is, in my opinion, over a 2 to 3 year period, the most impressive safety I've ever seen play football. Number 1. That's above Ed Reed. That's above Brian Dawkins, above Ronnie Lott. I mean, for me, Troy Polamalu during a 2 to 3 year stretch helped the Colts win a Super Bowl, helped Peyton out on defense when Peyton was losing to Brady in those cold weather games. Bob Sanders flew all over the place. He was so good that his body couldn't keep up. He couldn't even play for as long as he should have played due to injury. He had neck issues, and that guy just impressed the hell out of me. I don't even need to look at his numbers, honestly. I just remember just Bob Sanders all day, all night, watching Colts games. He was one of the main reasons I used to like watching those Colts teams. I remember, Nick, when we used to watch them, it used to be boring watching Peyton Manning and them sometimes. They were just so methodical. It was like watching a surgeon at work. So it was just boring. And Bob Sanders just lit it up. I used to love watching him play. Now, underrated, I'll go underrated, Nick, and then I'll throw you a guess at 2 underrated you have. But I'm going with my JTS, baby. This guy, they don't talk enough about my man, wide receiver 1 in the AFC East historically. You got that, Splash? Wide receiver 1 in AFC East history, and I'm not counting Randy Moss, is Don Maynard. Don Maynard is the GOAT white wide receiver. That's the GOAT. There's nobody else better as a white wide receiver than Don Maynard. Go look at the numbers. Led the league in receiving, led the league in yards per reception, led the league in touchdowns one year, led the leagues in yards per game, helped our man Namath as much as Namath needed that help because guy was pulling all-nighters showing up to the stadium. He had Don Maynard to throw the ball to. So Don Maynard, this guy had over 11,000 yards for his career, almost 12,000 yards, had 88 touchdowns. It would take Julio, like we were talking about last week, about 8 careers to have that many touchdowns. So it's Don Maynard is a boss. People need to speak about it more. And Jet fans don't even talk about him that much. Like, we have such a crazy fan base. I don't hear people talking about Don Maynard. Granted, this is the 1960s, but originally drafted. He was originally drafted by the Giants, believe it or not. That then turned into the New York Titans, and those jerseys are dope. We're talking about throwbacks. I used to love those Titans jerseys. But New York Titans. So Don Maynard's my second underrated player all time.
Okay, so we'll stick with underrated. So Nick, get your underrated out of the way, and then.
All right, I'm going to go on offense first, and it's a guy that me and Splash always talk about. Fred Taylor, not recent, but also not old school, kind of like the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, just going through, only been 24 guys who rushed for 10,000 yards. Taylor is 4.6 yards per carry, is 5th best of those guys, which is pretty crazy because he was stuck in Jacksonville, obviously not playing for the Cowboys like an Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton when he obviously primed in Chicago way before any of our times, but. Big play runner, 5th in the NFL history in runs for 10 yards plus with 311 of them, and 4th all time with runs of 50-yard plus, 13 of them. So Fred Taylor, in my opinion, probably because he was stuck in Jacksonville, and then obviously later at the end of his career, only 1 Pro Bowl and was never an All-Pro, and he was one of a very select few running backs to ever rush for 10,000 yards. I mean, you have guys like Peterson, LT, Sean Alexander, obviously never played in the Super Bowl, but those stats alone, 11,695 yards, pretty insane. I know the 2003 season, he had almost 1,600 yards, 6 touchdowns, playing on such a bad team, or, they had some solid years and, with Tom Coughlin and another very underappreciated guy, Jimmy Smith on those Jacksonville teams with Mark Brunell. Those were 3 solid players for those teams. So I think Fred Taylor was never really kind of spoken about with like the Marshall Faulks at the time when they were in their prime. So I always thought he was somebody I never liked to see, when the Jets played the Jaguars or, even the early days of fantasy, Fred Taylor was one of like your kind of like a Corey Dillon, similar kind of runners were very underappreciated. And then second, my second underappreciated, and this on the defensive side of the ball, is a guy who gets really no love, and he has one of the most like eye-popping like statistics or records, I guess you can say, is London Fletcher. I mean, I think because he's small, never flashed really. I always saw London Fletcher. He's not a Hall of Fame guy, but like he played this rate 256 regular season games, never missed a start due to injury. At the linebacker position, when linebackers were playing at the linebacker position, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, Another guy who only had one Pro Bowl, which is crazy. Played with the Bills. The Rams,
he had one Pro Bowl or one All-Pro?
No, one Pro. I have here. Started the Rams in the Super Bowl season at the beginning of his season, and they're in Pro Bowl for Washington. No, for 2009, 2012. But before that, before his Washington days when he was really good with the Rams, you don't think of him because you think of that offense. He didn't make a single Pro Bowl or All-Pro during that time frame, but he was a favorite of Greg Williams, the crazy defensive coordinator with the Bills, followed him with the Rams, obviously followed him to the Bills. And then Washington led the NFL in tackles in 2011. To me, I always thought of him with like Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher in that era. He was always the number 3 guy during that time frame, and he was someone who just showed up. He was undersized, but he was just all over the field making tackles, interceptions. I always thought he didn't get the love he deserved. So Fletcher, in my opinion, could have made the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he will.
Interesting. Okay.
He could, Nick. He could.
For everybody that just joined us, if we had any stragglers, we are running a throwback jersey contest. If you missed the rules before, I'm just going to repeat them real quick. In the comments, write who you think is either your most underrated or overrated player in NFL history. Because this is a throwback contest, we're doing old school players, or I guess we should say retired players, past players. It doesn't necessarily have to be old school. Best argument wins. I pick. So no Patriots players for overrated, please, because you will lose automatically. With that being said, let's go overrated. So Frankie, overrated. Most overrated players ever. Who are they?
Okay, I'm going to do it like I did before, super old school, and then current past.
Okay.
Which one? Actually, Bree, which one do you want me to do? Or Nick, whoever says it first.
Super old.
Yeah.
Super old. This guy pisses me off so much. This guy sucks. This guy should shut his mouth. He's the luckiest player in NFL history. He talks about everybody, and he sucks, and he's not a good announcer, and he's not a good analyst. This guy's trash. It's Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw, you suck ass. You're not a good quarterback. You were the luckiest quarterback ever. You played with Franco Harris, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth. You played with the Steel Curtain defense. You have almost as many touchdowns as interceptions. You have a 51% completion. How many times has he thrown over 3,000 yards, this guy? Twice. He stinks. And he talks so much smack to Terry Bradshaw like he has the right to talk badly about other quarterbacks. You were the luckiest quarterback. He's like Eli Manning on the most like legacy steroids possible, like Barry Bonds-ish steroids, like legacy wise in terms of what that team did for Terry Bradshaw. He is garbage as a quarterback. He sucked. There was 20 quarterbacks in that day that could have played for that team and would have won. He has no historic plays. Franco Harris bails him out. Lynn Swann bailed him out. The Steel Curtain defense. So Terry Bradshaw, very overrated in my book, obviously. Okay. Now, current past. This is another guy that, like Terry Bradshaw, I can't remember one play that stands out to me as being like, wow, great job, great win, great moment. And not to be a hater, but it's Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers has all the numbers in the world. He just never really put it together to have that one baller winning season. He had a lot of help when it comes to tight ends he's had. LaDainian Tomlinson, who I almost put as my underrated player in current history, because I think LaDainian Tomlinson, there's an argument to be made for him being the best running back of all time in terms of what he did catching and on the ground. So Phillip Rivers, you have all the stats in the world, but you were a chucker. And at the end of the day, when it came down to make a play, you didn't make those plays. I mean, if you put Jameis Winston, who I don't like, but if you put a guy like Jameis Winston on a team for 10 years, 15 years, and just let him start every game for that span of time, and you gave him some weapons like Phillip Rivers had and a team, because they had nice pieces on defense as well, you're going to get Phillip Rivers numbers almost, or you're going to get a Phillip Rivers-like career. So I don't know. I mean, Phillip Rivers, to me, people talk about him in their Hall of Fame conversations with Eli and Ben, and I think Eli and Ben are clearly on just another level, in my opinion.
Okay, I don't hate either of those, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree completely with Phillip Rivers. I think he's one of the most overrated stat padding, small moment, big game players. Like, he just never did it for me. For me, I'm going to go with a guy who consider Frank, similar to yours with Bradshaw, but this guy is definitely going to rub some people the wrong way. Not only did I think he was an overrated quarterback, even though he has 2 Super Bowls and he's won a lot, but he's also the worst or one of the worst GMs, presidents, decision makers in current NFL history too. And that's John Elway. I think he is super overrated.
Oh, wow.
If he played in an era like he did, if he played in an era like today, where if you don't put up in year 1, 2, and ultimately 3, you're gone. It took him until he was like 31 or 32 years old to get to that Super Bowl, to win that Super Bowl with Terrell Davis, obviously. But his average season here, which is pretty crazy, Frank, his average season is 57% completion percentage, 3,500 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. An average season for John Elway, who's on so many people's like we say it all the time, Mount Rushmore for quarterbacks. He's on so many people's like one of the all-time greats. I always thought he was an overrated quarterback. I just didn't, he never did it for me. And compared to his playoff stats here, I have compared he's a 54.5 completion percentage, 27 to 21 touchdown to interception, 14 and 8 in the playoffs. He's really good. It's the longevity factor with him. He played so long. He's the biggest tool also between when he got drafted and what he did coming out of Stanford. And then now as a GM or not anymore, because they kind of fired him without firing him, but they moved him to like a president role. He's a terrible GM and decision maker with the Broncos now.
I love how Splash put that up there. Led NFL in passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you go through his statistics, there's years that are
Splash
really good.
Is a big Elway guy.
His career high is 27 touchdowns. I mean, you're playing in the league now where guys have that by week 8 or week 9. Had 4,000 yards once. He played for, I believe, 12 or 16, 15 seasons. Yeah, I agree. I think he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks, and I'll stay on the overrated quarterback. Another guy who's a low completion percentage guy, and that's Phil Simms. I thought he was one of the most overrated quarterbacks too. Obviously didn't, won 2 Super Bowls, but one as the starter. So to me, Phil Simms was a guy who was just always like mediocre to good, not great. Elway had great years and won Super Bowls because of him. To me, a guy like Phil Simms was really like also along for the ride, and obviously he got hurt, and Hostetler won that Super Bowl for the Giants. But I always thought, in the same way with Simms is the same way with Joe Namath. It's like you're bigger because you won in New York, and Namath did a lot more off of the field for the game of the NFL game than Phil Simms did. Namath was the first brand, the big brand player to cash in off the field. First quarterback to throw for the 4,000 yards in a season. Only did it once, I believe. But his career was ripped apart by injuries back in, they were just like, they would gun for his knees because he was such a hot shot off the field. So, guys would take cheap shots on Namath, and that ultimately ended his career. But Simms, to me, is a guy who you see also in like a lot of top 15, 20 quarterbacks of all time. And to me, he has no business being in there. I think it ultimately because he won in New York, and when players win in New York, you tend to get a little bit more overrated than you are. But those two guys, especially Elway to me, because Elway is in a lot of top fives, and he has no business being in there, in my opinion. When you compare him to a guy, which there are comparisons, people compare him to like a Joe Montana. To me, there's no comparison.
I mean, do you remember those teams Elway was on? You remember the weapons they had,
Rod
the receivers,
Smith, TD,
McCaffrey was awesome. The dad. Mm-hmm. He was amazing. Shannon Sharp was on that team. They had an offensive line that they mastered. Cup blocking. Terrell Davis, those 2 years just freaking was insane.
Mark Schlereth, man, one of the best, most underrated offensive linemen of all time.
What about that defense? Was amazing. But what I was going to say,
Shanahan
Nick,
system
is,
too.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, if you had non-Jet fans doing this segment, you're going to get one person, maybe Bree would say this, but they'd say that Joe Namath was overrated because definitely. When you look at lists, you always see that. But the reason why Joe Namath is not overrated is there's one reason. He's too cool. He won with the Jets. That's it. If you won with the Jets, you could have 500 interceptions to 50 touchdowns, but you won and you guaranteed it, and you're cool like that. you're not overrated. You just can't be.
It's a different era too. They played 14 games. So when you see Namath with a 4,000-yard season in 14 games, that's a very impressive season. So, people think of Namath like they look at his stats. That's all they do at the end of the day, and see more interceptions to touchdowns. And they're this guy one good year. He was like in Alabama in college, coming to the NFL, what he did to kind of branch off and really create what the NFL is today. The story of the NFL can't really be told without Joe Namath and what he's done for the game. So it's a very like modern day, like hot take-ish Instagram fan thing to say that Joe Namath is overrated because they just look at his stats and they compare it to like Brett Favre, and there's no comparison.
Yeah, quick stat. How many times has Joe Montana thrown for 4,000 yards in his career? Bree?
None.
Ding, 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 ding.
I was going to say one.
None. Never did. Joe Montana never threw for 4,000 yards with Jerry Rice, which is interesting.
The game is so different, though. The game is very different now.
Yeah, of course.
Teams are just airing it out. Like Matt Ryan's throwing for 4,500 yards, and he's like as average as you can get. It's just such a different game. So it's hard to compare, stats from 1982 to now. Montana basically had in 1990 with one of the best teams of all time, but it's hard to like, and I hate to do it, and it pours into other sports too, and we're going to get into other sports obviously later in the show. But when people try to compare like a 1980s era player to now, it's such a hard. I try and stay out of those conversations, but like it's such a hard conversation to have because the game is refereed so differently. The game is preferred so differently now. That you can't even hit anybody anymore in the NFL. And, if guys like Lawrence Taylor played in 2021, we probably wouldn't even know who he is because of the way the game is officiated now.
Well, that's my biggest beef with all of these, like, who's the GOAT conversations between Michael Jordan and LeBron, between Brady and Montana. Like, they're two completely different styles of the sport that from however many years in between when both have played. So while you can look at the stats, you also kind of have to think like in the NBA, they were beating the shit out of each other every single day, game in, game out.
Yep.
Now, LeBron has maintenance days. I mean, he just doesn't feel like playing one day just to rest up a little bit.
Yep.
Nobody has a problem with it. He just rests. So, like, and that's not a knock on LeBron. I mean, like, I'm not a LeBron fan per se, but it's different. And the same goes for football. Pretty much every sport. I mean, you look at hockey. Hockey's still kind of brutal right now, but they played with no helmets, no nothing. Beating the crap out of each other. So it's
hockey will change, I think, eventually. I think all these fights you see, something's gonna happen and they're gonna come down on the league, in my opinion. These fights you see now, I think in 10 years won't even happen anymore, in my opinion.
I hope not. In
the NBA now, if you swipe at somebody, whether or not you even hit them or not, if you just go to swipe and you don't even make contact, but there's like the intent to make contact, they could call a flagrant 2 on that without even hitting somebody. That's the type of world we live in today. And I mean, listen, we could talk about LeBron all we want. Amazing player, second best player all time, I'd say. He had a lot to do with the changes that the NBA's going through now. Don't think he didn't. He has a lot to say because he's got a big voice. And honestly, I must say, not having him in the playoffs has been fantastic. These playoffs have been awesome. Thank you. I've enjoyed the hell out of it.
There's some good comments down there. Some good entries, Bree. You got a tough job.
I'm gonna have to scroll. I saw one that I really, really, really like.
There are a lot of underrated linebackers and running backs. I agree. The quarterback is always like the polarizing, like overrated, underrated. Right. But when I was like, I always had London Fletcher in my mind. I always had Fred Taylor. And I always said John Elway was overrated in different conversations I had with people. But as I was just kind of looking more and more just to kind of like solidify my choice here, I saw so many. And Zach Thomas I saw on there is a great one. He was always someone who I hated playing against growing up. Like in our era, Frank, as Jet fans, it was like late 90s, early 2000s, those Dolphin teams. Like that's a great entry. I saw Aikman overrated, which I tend to agree with too, slightly.
I saw that one too. I like that one.
Yeah, there's some tough ones out there. Some good entries.
I like the Aikman one a lot, but there's one in there that so what I'll do is I will set a hard cap on this. So we are going to hop into some NBA right now, and we're going to go back to football after the NBA segment. So you have until we start our next NFL segment to get in your most underrated or overrated past player and an argument as to why. And once we start our tight end segment, that's when I'm going to pick the winner. So you have until then. We're going to hop into some NBA right now. But once that starts, all entries are done. Everybody has to be in. And then I will pick. So
can I say something about a big move that happened before we, about an hour before, we didn't mention it?
Yes.
Is David DeCastro from the Steelers. That's a big time release because you lose DeCastro, Pouncey, and Villanueva on that offensive line. It looks like they're going to sign Trey Turner to replace DeCastro. He's 31 years old. I know Garofolo said there's some talk about the ankle injury being a lot worse than we know, and he may retire. But DeCastro is one of the best guards in football. And I know he had a little bit of a down year last year. I know he hit that age 30, and then it's always like people start to freak out. But at that guard position, you can play until 35 and still be really good. So I hope DeCastro kind of hangs in there and finds another team to go to because that guy's a stud.
That's wild. That came out of left field too.
I know.
Yeah. And just to clarify, you guys, you can't just write a name as to who's most overrated or underrated. Javi, I need an explanation.
Guys, that's like that. Guys, it's like on a dating app. You can't just say "hey" or something. You gotta give something, right?
I need whether you think they are underrated or overrated and why. It can't just be a name. The names will not be included in this contest. So use your words for me, please, and give me a nice, solid 3-paragraph essay as to why you think so. So, okay.
3 paragraphs. Wow, that's demanding.
No, you guys like my Super Daddy-O shirt, by the way?
Oh, that's sick.
Luka killed this Father's Day.
Luka did kill it. Shout out to all the dads. Happy belated Father's Day.
Yes. Happy
Father's Day, Nick.
Thank you.
All the fathers and our
Happy Father's Day,
one and only.
Yeah, it's fun. Is Breeze your dad watching?
Flash is a daddy.
He is. My dad is watching. So
Happy
shout out to my dad.
Happy Father's Day.
Splash is the you daddy. He's the daddy of the show.
Yeah, exactly. He's the daddy of the
Keeps
you
us in line.
Of the all 32.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, wait, guys, I was only kidding about the 3-paragraph essay. If there's a character limit, just try to fit it in. I was only joking.
You know
about
what?
The essay.
I would say whoever has put the most characters at this point. I mean, it's Bree's decision, but I would say if someone can really go ham on a character limit on there, I think
I think Kai was at the name flash really quick. I think he had the Aikman one. It was very in depth right here. Oh, Kayvon, or the Kai, however you pronounce it. I don't want to botch it. Sorry. He already entered with the Aikman one, so that was a good one. Yep. I saw that one.
I have the ones I've seen. I've had ingrained. So, but all right, let's hop into some NBA. Trae Young has been on an absolute tear in these playoffs, which is refreshing to see, going back to what Frankie said about having some playoffs without LeBron. It's not, I don't necessarily think it's bad for the league. I think it's nice to see these fresh new faces, some teams that you really wouldn't expect. What the Suns are doing right now is so much fun to watch, despite the fact that it's West Coast games and I can't stay up for an entire West Coast game at 24 years old. I'll fall asleep at halftime. But beside the point, it's nice to see some new teams. It's nice to see the Nets kind of get stomped out, just for my own personal reasons. But Trae Young is going insane right now. And he continued that last night with really just incredible numbers against the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Final. 48 points on 50% shooting. I think it was 11 assists. And it just doesn't seem like he's slowing down. So, which begs the question, we're going to go back in time just a little bit. That's kind of our running theme for the show is throwback. So we're going to go back in time a little bit to the 2018 draft, where the Atlanta Hawks took Luka Doncic and flipped him to Dallas for Trae Young. At the time, people were questioning the move. Now, does it look as ridiculous now as it did then? Do you think they made the right move? What do you guys think about this? So, Nick, we'll have you go first because Frankie went first last time.
Yeah, there's to be no Lucas slander on this show.
No, we love Lucas
whether it's with a C or a K. I think he's the best player in basketball. He's the number one player I would take. I know Durant is the best scorer, and obviously LeBron still plays, and I love Booker too. But to me, I think what Luka does, he's just so much more well-rounded than Trae Young. To me, Trae Young's like, and I know the game is different. You can't touch anybody. You can't play anybody tough. He shoots the ball. He doesn't really, I know he draws fouls really well, to his credit, which is weak in my opinion, but that is the way the game is today. But Luka to me is just more solid. He does more triple-double machine. I mean, I know I saw a stat where Luka was like one of 3 players to have like 40 points, 15 assists, and 15 rebounds in the playoffs or whatever it may be. I think it's just a little bit of like living too much in the moment. Trae is killing it right now. To me, his frame worries me. But again, you see a guy like Steph Curry who's just insane. But he did kind of get hurt, and he missed basically 2 full seasons. I think Luka is just so much more well-rounded. He plays better. He plays bigger than Trae Young does. And to me, I think Luka, you got to get rid of this clown Porzingis. He's just an absolute fool. He's a loser, and they have to get rid of him. I wish he wasn't in the league. I think he's one of the biggest, I hate to use the term cancers in the sport. I think if the Mavericks, and I'm not a big fan of Mark Cuban, to be honest with you. So, but I think you have to get some better players around Luka. Let him pick the players like LeBron does, and surround him with a better cast. I think Porzingis brings Luka down. I think he's just a dark cloud around whatever team he's on, and he falls.
Nick,
into,
you've been saying that
category.
for a long.
I said that
since
since KP was like the king of New York. I said this guy's a loser.
Nick said that, and yep, I remember that.
So I couldn't root for Luka and the Mavericks because I don't like Porzingis that much. So him and LeBron are my 2 least favorite players in basketball. So wherever they are, I don't want to see that team win. So I had such a struggle with like my favorite player in Luka with a K and KP that like I couldn't really root for them to win. So I was happy to see them lose. So, if they add some better players around Luka with a K in the offseason, I'll probably consider myself, because I don't really have a basketball team, but I would follow Dallas. I think, moving Dirk into like a role, which is pretty cool. I think him and Luka can have, kind of like that, both like European, coming into the league really as like, don't really speak the language, bursted onto the scene. Took Dirk a lot longer than you hope it's going to take Luka to win a championship. So I think that's going to help Luka in the long run. So I thought that was a smart move by them. But no, I'm taking Luka 100%. But I think Trae Young is great, man. He's more of the modern day basketball player.
And for everybody who doesn't understand why Nick is calling him Luka with a K, his son is Luka with a C. So he just wants to make sure that it's nice and clear he's not talking about little Luka here. So okay, right. just had to get that out there. All right, Frankie, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a tough conversation to have, because you have a guy in Luka who has the mold of someone that you basically would want to give the keys to lead your franchise for a variety of reasons: size, spark, the way he plays. He can do more. He can play more positions on the court. But there's one thing that Trae Young does better than Luka Doncic. Doncic, whatever. I always his last name, how to pronounce it right. But there's one thing Trae does better than Luka, and that is breaking down the first initial defender, which then allows Trae to dish the ball out to his shooters. That's why Trae Young, since he got into the league, averages more assists than Luka does per game. He averaged more assists this year. And Trae is so deceptively quick. He's cat quick. He's like a cat, they call him. And his ability to break down defenses, and with that floater, and that the way he gets fouls and some of these calls people don't like, that's part of the game. James Harden made a career doing that. I have zero problem with it. If you can, it's the ref's fault. It's not the player's fault. Tell the freaking refs don't call a foul. The player's going to keep doing it. Manu Ginobili did it his whole career. Don't give me that's don't blame Trae for that. Blame the refs. The refs stop calling it, they'll stop doing it. It's not the player's fault. Players take what they get. He's a phenomenal free throw shooter. His last 10 games, he's shooting 97% from the free throw line. Luka's not a 90% free throw shooter. He's more in the 75% range. So he's a better free throw shooter. He breaks the initial defender down better. He gets it out to his shooters more effectively because he breaks down his initial defender. Would I take Luka over Trae? Yes. Is it a bad pick? I would have said 100% it was a week or two ago. It's not a bad pick. It's not. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. He fits.
It's a win-win for both teams. I don't think either team would cancel the trade if they could,
Yeah,
and that's one of those things.
The coach of and I'll stop. The coach of the Hawks, though, the way he's coached up Trae Young, Nate McMillan is amazing. That guy deserves as much love as anybody, as any coach has ever gotten, in terms of a playoff run and how much effect the coach has had on the team. I mean, you look at Nate McMillan's numbers when he got the Hawks before and after Nate got there. They're a completely different team. And when they beat our ass, the Knicks, the Hawks, they missed so many shots. That's how I had a feeling, honestly, the Hawks could have went on a run. And my friend Ari, who's on Knicks Fan TV, we were out the other night, and he was saying that watch the Hawks go on a run and go to the finals. And people are like, you're crazy, dude. They're not even going to get out of this round. But he was right, because they had missed all these shots, and now Danilo's hitting shots, Huerta's hitting shots, so that they were missing against the Knicks. So the Hawks are dangerous.
You think they win the series?
Yes.
No.
And you know what? Book this. Guarantee the Bucks are going to win game 2. 100. If the Bucks don't win game 2, I don't know. We can make a bet. Does someone want to comment? I will make a bet with anybody. I'll do something on the show, whatever you guys want on the show. If the Bucks don't win game 2, I will do whatever. Sing a song, shave my head live on air, whatever you guys want.
No,
it's not. It's not happening. The Bucks are going to win game 2, 100%. That's a book it bet. I'm telling you, the Bucks got embarrassed.
I think with the way that these playoffs are going, like, it's going to be the most random teams in the finals. I think it's going to be the Suns for sure. I've said that since their first series, but I just think the way the East is going right now, with the craziness in Game 7 between the Bucks and the Nets, where Kevin Durant's foot was just too goddamn big, and it ended up being a 2-point shot. And the way Trae Young went into Madison Square Garden, and that was the first kind of full capacity environment we've had in sports in a while, and he just shut everybody up. He's got that big time moment balls. Like, it's great for the game, and I think they're too hot right now to not make a really, really, really deep run to the point where they make it to the finals. Now, do I think that they're going to win the finals if they make it? No. I still think it's the Suns all the way. I said that from Jump Street. I just don't know. I think this is one of those years where it's really weird. What was that year where it was like
the Pistons?
No, it was like when the Pacers won it in – when was the last time the Pacers won it? But I remember it was like an odd year.
When the Pacers went to the
some weird runs.
conference finals.
Yeah, like years like that. It's just this has the makings of something like that.
Yeah. You mean when the Pacers played the Heat? I think it was in 2013 when the Pacers made that run with
no, it
Roy
seems
Hibbert.
Like longer ago.
Oh, you mean when Reggie Miller?
Spurs, Grizzlies, Pacers, Heat.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Maybe that just seems a hell of a lot longer ago than it actually is.
It is one of the weirdest runs. If you would have told me the Hawks would have, Hawks and Suns were here before the year started.
Maybe Javi has it. He says 2000. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
That's when the Pacers made the finals last.
Right. I think that's what I'm talking about.
You were like 2 years old, right?
I was like 4. I remember. I don't know. I remember stuff. Anyway. All right. Let's talk about the Boston Celtics real quick, because they made a coaching hire. And I know this wasn't on the script, but we're just going to throw it in there because it's kind of a big deal. So the Boston Celtics have made a coaching hire, and it's kind of not somebody that anybody expected at all, especially up here. Everybody was kind of thinking, oh my God, are they going to do this thing with Kara Lawson? Is Kara Lawson going to be the first female coach in NBA history? And then there was Chauncey Billups that kept coming up, and it's neither of those guys, which is kind of refreshing for me. I think I'm just excited for a brand new face, a brand new name, despite the fact that he's been an assistant for however many years. He used to play in the league. All of this, he wasn't the best player, but he has league experience. So, Ime.
Well, they went younger. They went like a year.
They went younger.
Him and Brad Stevens are young, kind of up and coming guys.
And
Brad as an assistant.
And they went with somebody that got the okay from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which is all I wanted throughout this entire thing. And I'm excited. I don't know enough about this guy. He's engaged or married to Nia Long. I know that much. So that's exciting.
That's a win.
She's gonna.
I mean, that's half the battle, right? In the league today is like if the players like you and they'll play for you, then like you're already like 80% home. So, I mean, it's such a player sport now that if both the Jays signed off on it, you know, you're pretty good already. You know, you're off on a good foot. So, I thought it was cool. I like that like vibe that the Celtics are trying to do. Brad Stevens, young executive now, not a coach, and you know, bringing in the new coach who's also a younger guy. So I think it's a smart hire. I don't know anything about the guy, to be honest with you, but he had the experience with the Nets, who were this, you know, super team, and the players obviously respected this guy. You know, Durant, or you know, even like Steve Nash, if he respected this guy enough to have him on his staff. Obviously Durant. I would draw a blank with this guy's name every week. The point guard, Harden and Kyrie. If they respect this guy enough, then you know, then you're you know, you at least you have one thing in the checked off. So now if you can get them to play is another thing. So I thought it was a smart, like under the radar move too. I didn't expect that.
No, his name didn't really pop up in conversation at all up until maybe the last like 5 days.
Yeah, and then Rick Carlisle went back to the Pacers where he was, I felt, for forever, and they got on that pretty quick. So interesting.
Yeah.
Ray, what did I tell you guys? And Nick, what did I tell you guys about Kemba Walker? That was the smartest thing the Celtics did. Get rid of him as fast as possible because he was just not a good fit with that team. So
they really wanted him out.
Yeah.
So my thing with Kemba is being a UConn fan. I love him. Always gonna.
I like him too.
As a Celtics fan, I'm glad that they figured out a way to get him out of here. It sucks that they had to give up the 16th overall pick, but with that contract, you absolutely had to. Getting Al Horford back, Al's a likable guy. He's loved here for the person. The player, it depends on who you're talking to. I'm excited because I think this team needs a vet. I was all for last year having them bring Rondo back because they just needed a veteran presence. Al has already played with Jason and Jaylen. He knows Marcus Smart. He knows the way they all play. Not necessarily sure Marcus Smart is going to be here for much longer, but that's a whole nother story for a different day.
Should we oh, sorry, go ahead, Brie. Finish it.
No, I'm just I like the moves that Brad has made in his 14 days as the GM. So I'm excited. We'll see. They'll let me down again, I'm sure, at some point, but so far I like it. So
we got a game 7 in hockey. Everybody loves game 7s. Even I was interested in the Islanders last night. Let's bring in, we have Henry, who's a resident Islander fan with the U, obviously host of Utopia on uSTADIUM Network too, which we'll get into that soon. But Henry, what's up, man? Give us how on a 1 to 100. So how confident are you?
Let me just give a rundown. Let me just give a rundown of what's happening in the series, Henry, and then you can go. So for those that aren't the biggest hockey fans or have not really paid attention to these series, since your team got kicked out and hockey is kind of a hated word in your mind right now, like me. Game 5, the Islanders got their asses spanked 8-0. Goalie got chased in the first period. Everything was just looking about as wrong as it could have possibly gone. You come out of that game and you're thinking, wow, Tampa's going to finish them off in game 6. Not so fast. The Islanders pulled it out in overtime in game 6 and forced a game 7 back in Tampa tomorrow night. And I think the momentum is on New York's side right now. So, Henry, take it away. What do you think?
Well, they don't call them the pesky Isles for nothing.
No, they sure as hell don't.
That was a hell of an intro, dude. I just love that.
I told you, we're good at this.
We're gonna take that segment and just pop it in every once in a while.
The Islander blue headphones, I like it.
Yeah, got to represent. How confident
are you?
I would say, just because it's defending champs, I'd say I'm about a 45. If the Islanders played at home, if Game 7 was at the barn, the Isles do not lose in the barn. There's still some sort of magic there.
We know.
Final season. So I'm sorry for bouncing your Bruins.
Okay.
But
okay.
It was worth it. I do think that the Isles have a tough battle, full crowd against the defending Stanley Cup champions. But I think that they've got momentum on their side. They've got Matt Barzal on a tear. They've knocked out Nikita Kucherov and gotten away with it.
Is he playing?
No,
they haven't given an update on him yet.
Oh boy.
Are the Rays the better team?
The Lightning.
The Lightning. I mean the Lightning.
The Rays are baseball.
Yes.
The Lightning are the
The Lightning are.
You know, by the way, I have nightmares about the Tampa Bay Rays as a Yankee fan.
As do
I think about them like 5 times a day. Freaking Rays.
The Lightning are arguably the most talented team in the league, and they're defending Cup champions. Depending on how much stock you want to put into last year's Stanley Cup, because it was the bubble and everything like that, but they are.
All right, let me just get this straight from a very, 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 very casual fan perspective on hockey. Is it kind of like, in a sense, like in the NBA, the best team usually wins in the series? Football, there's a little bit of luck, but usually the better team will at least get into the conference championship. But in hockey, can you make like a little bit of a lucky run?
Absolutely.
Like so you could be like a 7 seed or something, and you just crush it and just tear it up and win a chip. But like the Lightning are the best team, but they seem to be doing great every year. So like, how does that dynamic work in hockey?
So it's tough. The Lightning are just because they're very big, very physical, very fast. They have some of the best, if not the best, shooters in the league. So and one of the best goalies in the league. So like their lineup of talent is just so ridiculous that it would take a lot of luck to beat them if you can't, outmuscle them, get lucky on second bounces, rebounds, things like that. But the way the Stanley Cup playoffs work is nobody is really the favorite, I guess, is the best way to put it. So, for example, this is the 10-year anniversary of the Bruins' last Stanley Cup. We shouldn't be talking about the last Stanley Cup for the Bruins because they should have won it 2 years ago, but that's okay. But they played the Canucks in the Stanley Cup final, and the Canucks were wildly better than the Bruins team. And I'm a Bruins homer. I'm as big of a Bruins homer as it gets. I can admit the Canucks were insanely better than the Bruins, and Bruins pulled out in 7 games and sent Vancouver into riots and everything.
I remember that.
It's possible. It's any given Sunday in hockey. I know that's like a football term, but any given Sunday, it's crazy. All right, Henry.
You guys are turning me into hockey fans. I mean, one of my best friends, Chris, is a hockey fan. I'm starting to get a little bit into it. I kind of like it. It's different.
I watched the end of last night. I saw the Islanders come out of overtime, and I was like, wait a second, why is Tampa not trying to get the puck to the other side of the ice? The Islanders were just pressing hardcore. I was expecting a counter in soccer where you press and you press and you press and you try and score, and then they kind of turn it on you, counter, and they score. But the Islanders, who was the guy who scored the goal? It was that was a nasty
Anthony
steal.
Beauvillier.
Yeah, Beauvillier, that steal and shot was in between 2 defenders. It was awesome. It was a crazy finish. Pretty fast.
Wait,
too.
Nick, you can see the puck now, Nick? I thought you couldn't.
No, I can't. I can't. Honestly, they need to bring that back on Fox when they had the trailer when it followed.
Can you really not see it?
God.
I can't see shit when I watch hockey. No. To me, hockey, and I know I'm gonna piss people off because hockey fans will die for their sport. To me, every goal seems like a mistake.
But most of them are.
Yeah, it seems it ricocheted off somebody, or someone just fitted in between a little slot, and they needed to shoot it there. To me, it's they weren't even trying to do it necessarily, got them a goal. So adding in the puck thing is hard for me. But fans go nuts.
If you saw 95% of the goals that the Bruins gave up in their playoff run, you would stick to your guns when it comes to every goal is a mistake, because every single goal except for maybe 2 or 3 in all the games that they played were off a deflection, off their own player, Ridiculous. So, all right, Henry, before we let you go, we have a potential closeout game tonight between Vegas and Montreal. Montreal, if they win tonight, they are in. Who would you rather play in the Stanley Cup final, provided the Islanders finish them off?
See, that's a great question because I think Vegas is an incredibly strong team, but the Canadiens have been on a really hot streak recently. They're like 10-4 or something since they've lost to they went down 3-1, and I don't like that at all. Yeah. So I don't really want to see that.
You don't want to play a Canadian team. It's their sport.
That too. I don't want to hear two anthems at once.
Yeah.
No.
One, please. Thank you.
Too long.
They do it twice.
Jitters last too long.
Yeah, they do the American one and the Canadian one.
Yeah.
No, but if two Canadian
kneeling,
teams
are
playing in the finals, are they
no.
Ones?
Two Canadian teams. It's just the Canadian.
No, yeah, they just play the Canadian.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Good question.
That's a Jeopardy thing.
Nick, the Italian national anthem on Saturday, baby.
That's by far the best
anthem.
By far.
Let's go.
Henry, last question. But I know Bree said last question, but why were the announcers like freaking out like their fans were shooting people last night from throwing like, when you get a hat trick, you throw all that shit on the ice. They were throwing bottles and stuff, but they weren't throwing them at the players. It could be the last game at the bar, and you said like it was just a giant relief. And you would think, listen to the announcers, they were like, "Oh my God, well, what's going on?" Like I think they were bombing the arena. They were just throwing it away from the players. They weren't even hitting the players. I was watching. I was like, "What's this guy like going crazy for? Relax."
Well, my take, I don't know why they personally or what through their heads. My take is the average age of those announcers, I think, was something about 50-something.
Oh, that's funny.
And they don't know how to have fun.
Yeah.
So that's my guess. I think that they're all unwritten rules, treat the opponents with respect, all that stuff. They're not ones for tradition.
Yeah, they weren't throwing them at the players. They were throwing them on the other far side of the ice. Mm-hmm. I get it. You could hit the player or whatever, but God, the guy was overreacting big time.
If it was up to Bree and Nick, they would go into the fans, the hockey players, and use their skates to stab people in the neck.
I would let Mike Milbury go up and beat a fan with a shoe 10 times again if he wanted to, just to keep the animals calm. I get it, but oh my God, you guys are morons. All right, Henry,
Islanders winning or no? Give me a prediction for tomorrow night.
All right. I have a biased pick and I have an actual pick.
No.
We want the biased pick. We all want this is a very biased show. Just give us the biased pick.
All right. Owls win to take it 3-1. Varlamov's hot. Point gets shut down.
Let's see.
No Nikita Kucherov completely hampers the entire offense of the Lightning. The second line is obsolete. I think a Barzell goal, maybe JJ Pageau. I think he's been scoreless this entire series. I think he's due. I think the Islanders carry this momentum that they've got from this come from behind overtime thriller, instant classic win. I think they take this game and Amelie go 3-1, send themselves to the Stanley Cup Finals, and give some more juice to the barn.
Very good, Henry. Appreciate it, bro.
Anytime,
Thanks,
guys.
Henry.
Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
Good.
All right. Are we ready to do this tight end segment finally? Or should I?
We did discuss, we have to end the show with something politically based. So we have two political topics. Yeah. One, did Fauci know? Or two, we can do.
Elaborate, please. Did Fauci know what?
Bree hates when we speak politics.
I hate it. I hate anything that has to do with politics. It's the worst.
Fauci, no.
I'm actually kind of obsessed with it. I don't know why.
Oh, God,
I argue both sides, and I just piss people off. It's kind of enjoyable.
And then you start arguing yourself.
Yeah.
All right, let me pick a winner.
Fauci,
let me pick a winner.
Go ahead.
All right, so there were a lot of good ones. I liked the Troy Aikman one a lot. I liked the Zach Thomas one a lot. And I liked the Matt Forte one a lot. But the one I liked the most, and I'm not picking favorites here, I promise.
Drum roll.
Holden dropped a Steven Jackson, and I love that. I love Steven Jackson.
That's a homer pick.
Yes. That's what happens when you put Bree in charge of picking winners.
Oh, he played for the Patriots for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
He played for the Patriots for a cup of coffee. He didn't do anything. I always liked Steven Jackson, and I was very happy. Was very happy when the Patriots signed him. It was on his his last fumes. He was running out of gas, running on fumes, and that was it. That's all he had. But Holden puts a good stat in here that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. He doesn't get talked about enough.
Splash, throw his answer up. I want to make sure that
he goes 10 straight rushing seasons for 1,000 yards.
Curtis did like 14, but
this is all the way up here.
Honestly, not to be a hater, there's a better argument. I think that Steven Jackson
I agree.
Overrated.
I might have to overrule Bree, but she's in charge.
But hey,
overrule? Why?
No, Bree was in. Nick, that's what happens when you put Bree in charge. You know, we can't speak about politics. I want to speak with Nick right now about Anthony Fauci, and we can't talk about him. You're putting the whip down.
Do you after dark.
The show's going to end.
The you after dark conspiracies. And if we're doing the tight end segment, and Steven Jackson did the body issue, remember he's stacked too, Steven Jackson. So I think that's a good one.
Sorry, don't put me in charge if you don't like what I pick. All right. But I will say, though, for Kai, the Troy Aikman one was very, very close second. I agree 100% that he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the history of football. So if there's a way we can toss Kai some points on the app or something like that.
Definitely. We'll take care of Kai.
We can do that.
Splash, get Kai's username or something from Kai.
So all right. So we're going to finish up with tight end rankings. We did this on the app. We have our top 10 with the fan vote in there at number 10. We're going to just go over this really, 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 really quick. All right. Already not seeing something I like on here.
I see a few I don't like.
Where the hell is Rob Gronkowski?
Not top 10 anymore.
And he's better than TJ Hawkinson.
No,
he's better than Dallas Goedert. He's better than Noah Fant.
Better than 7 down.
No, he's not.
Hunter Henry at 9 is ridiculous.
No, it's not.
Where should he be?
Sorry, I'm not trying to be. I just disagree. He's. I put him at. Gronk is done.
No,
he's just doing. He's the best blocking tight end in football. He doesn't need to catch the ball anymore. I don't know. I still take Gronk over half the list, but I know why he's not.
Having Gronk on your team, I understand. If you in terms of locker room and energy and run blocking, which is not something you're really statistically looking at, but in terms of value, there's some guys that aren't even on this list, like Logan Thomas, who plays with a crappy quarterback situation, and I think Logan Thomas is really good. Jonnu Smith is really good. Tyler Higbee. How much better is Gronk right now than Tyler Higbee? Let's just be honest.
A lot better than Tyler Higbee. What the hell does Tyler Higbee do?
Bree, not Gronk in New England, though. I know. I'm saying Gronk going into next year.
Gronk in Tampa is still one of the elite blocking tight ends in the league. And if you disagree, you did not watch that entire playoff run.
That's fair. No, he's a great
I
run
don't
blocker.
like Noah Fant up there. I don't know.
Nope.
I think he's got a lot more to prove. I think Kyle Pitts as a rookie is tough. Goddard to me, yeah. I don't know. I get it. The position is hard. There really is only 4 or 5 guys who you're comfortable with putting there. And a lot of people probably have an issue with 1 and 2, but who's better, Kelsey or Kittle? I lean Kelsey too, just because longevity, B, Kittle was hurt most of last year.
This is the
I
fan
like Gesicki a lot.
This is the fan vote we did. Gronkowski came in 3rd, so you have Mike.
Okay, so
can we get that up on the screen? Splash, you got me on there. This is the uSTADIUM app fan vote. we had Mike Gesicki who won.
They voted Robert Tonyan over Robert. You guys, I'm done. I'm done with everybody on the app. I have a bone to pick with every single one of you. That is disgraceful.
Bree, we'll see.
You gotta get on there and make a video of Bree.
Oh my god!
Catch the U fam on the app. That's what they're saying. Yeah. They're ready for you on there. All 32.
I'm gonna make a post for the first time on the app. I think.
Yeah.
You better make it a good one.
Yeah. Rob Gronkowski's still a top tight end in this league. Sorry.
And there are a few guys I like Tonyan. If we're going to put a rookie on there based off of no year, Tonyan on 1 year was really good. I think Austin Hooper belongs above Noah Fant. So there's guys it's it's an interesting.
Hold on, you just said I don't want to argue too much, but what you just said was ridiculous.
What is
Austin Hooper? Austin Hooper proved last. I had him in fantasy, Nick. He was terrible. He's not a fantasy. He had a great fantasy year 2 years ago. All right, this is the thing. It's tough with tight ends because so much of what they do, I think, is predicated on their system and how they're used. But like, if you want to go with in terms of talent, I feel like I'm talking like Splash right now. But Logan Thomas or Mike Gesicki or Noah Fant or TJ Hawkinson, these guys are light years in terms of their talent and their ability to get yak. And Jared Cook, Evan Ingram, you're comparing those with Austin Hooper and Gronk. I mean, these guys can't even move anymore, it seems like. Maybe it's just me, but like there's some tight ends. I don't know. I don't know about that. Robert Tonyan sucks.
I'm still giving
Robert Tonyan had 11
respect.
Touchdowns. He could disappear in 2 years. Robert Tonyan is not better than Noah Fant, for example. Watch
what
Noah
has Noah Fant done, though? I have. All he does is he gets hurt and misses every other play. He's soft.
I know, but the thing is, it's weird right now.
Don't ask him to block.
He had 62 catches last year, Nick. He had over, I think, 650 yards. It's right here, 673. That's pretty good. And he missed some games. Noah Fant could be someone that you get into like a category where he can get 800, maybe 900 yards receiving. Tonyan, there's no shot Robert Tonyan will ever have 800 yards receiving in a season. Zero, like literally virtually not going to happen. He could have 15 touchdowns because he plays with Rodgers, but Fant and Evan Ingram's and Logan Thomas's, those guys are at like a different level, in my opinion. Hawkinson, but again, the position's weird. I know, Nick, you like more of your traditional, and obviously Bree does too, your traditional run blocking,
Where was Andrews?
Position guy. I mean, Jason Witten could barely move and was one of the best tight ends we've seen. So Andrews is awesome.
I agree with Andrews. The top four on the list. Mm-hmm. Not having Gronkowski on there is criminal. Mike Gesicki should be higher than 10. I like Gesicki a lot. TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant probably wouldn't be on there for me.
Love Hawkinson. I think he's a great blocker. He's explosive.
I don't think he should be there yet. Goddard too. Goddard for sure.
I agree. Hawkinson 5's a little bit high because he hasn't.
I like him. I like him. I like him 5. I think he's going to be great this year. I don't love Goff, but Goff likes his tight ends.
I don't know.
Goddard's an interesting one.
I think Higbee's solid. I think Higbee's a solid receiver too. I think there's some pass catchers that it's a tough list, like I said, because after 5 it is arguable. Like there's really not that many really good tight ends. I mean, Pitts could be number 2 next year. We don't know, or he could not even be on the list. But
I think
it's. The more I look at it, it's not that bad. Like it's hard to really.
Who had a good tight end?
Putting him on there is just a little iffy.
The Patriots had a good tight end last year,
They have good tight ends now.
10 of them.
They have good tight ends now.
The Patriots lined up a tackle at tight end and tried to play football. Like it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like a team that reinvented the tight end with Gronk.
Years ago?
They drafted 2 tight ends in 2020. Asiasi and Dalton Keene. Dalton Keene couldn't stay healthy. Asiasi couldn't run his routes right. And then they had Matt LaCoste.
And they traded Izzo, right?
And thank God, they traded Ryan Izzo to the Texans this offseason.
Ryan Izzo, that's what I was thinking of. Wasn't he like a tackle or something?
I think you're thinking of Larry.
No, so 2 years ago, they had a Landon Roberts play fullback because both their fullbacks got hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And a Landon Roberts caught a touchdown. So pretty cool.
Well, you have
all right.
Every Patriot cast off is either now on the Texans or Dolphins.
Yeah. That's
Jason Kidd emerging as the Mavericks head coaching favorite is what the what Woj said.
That's not
per Henry in the chat. I like it. Kidd and Luka, my two favorite players ever.
I mean, Steve Nash, they say, has done a pretty good job overall in terms of just figuring out that.
Yeah, leading the most disappointing super team of all time.
The only team that the best tight end.
Nick, they had injuries, man. It's like it was.
Give me a break, Kevin Durant. I mean, how many times has LeBron James led a garbage roster? He's playing with Harden played every minute of the game. You have even Blake Griffin on.
You can't compare. Durant was coming back from injury.
The white guy who couldn't shoot for shit in the
Durant came back from injury, man.
It was an epic.
We didn't know
meltdown for the Nets.
Nobody expected this from Kevin Durant coming into the season. Nobody. I'm talking nobody. I don't care. I mean, to get to this level where Kevin Durant's being propelled as like the clear-cut best player in basketball, nobody thought that was going to happen this season. They thought, who knew it, Durant? Maybe he would lose a step. Maybe he didn't have the same bounce.
Well, he hardly played in the regular season. He was fresh. You know, it wasn't like he's not playing on tired legs. I know he was injured, but you
don't know what the Achilles. No one really came back from
I know that,
and
I'm
Dom Wilkins
not ripping
and a couple
Durant.
other guys.
Unbelievable. But it was like you played with. You know, there was one or two games where you only had Durant. Harden came back, and I know he was a shell of himself, but he was still out there. And you had Blake Griffin. You had the white dude who shoots, drawing a blank on. It was terrible. Joe Harris. He was awful. So, like, you had these guys. It's not like Durant went with nobody. And they lost to the Bucks. Like, give me a break. The Bucks are like the ultimate, like blue balls team. Nobody cares about the Bucks. You can't go out and lose a Game 7 at home to the Bucks. You just can't do it. And you have two of three of the big four.
Nick, it was a good game. Nick, it was a good game.
Yeah, but they lost, man. It was an epic
was a good game.
It
happens. Kevin Durant's not LeBron James. This is the thing.
I know.
And we'll wrap up the show. Everyone needs to stop comparing anyone to Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and stop comparing them both. Don't compare LeBron and Jordan. Don't compare anyone to Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Don't compare anyone. These are the most special basketball players to ever hit a
that's fine,
court.
But they didn't make the conference finals.
Durant's not LeBron. Who the hell is LeBron?
No, I agree.
And to compare, Giannis is a bad player.
But he's not a great winner. No, but he
does everything. He's 7 foot and he has a 7'6" wingspan and he moves
you
like
lost
a guard.
To the Bucks. You were an epic failure of a super team.
Bullshit.
And it was an awful season for the Nets. I'm sorry, it was. In my opinion, like to lose to a team who has no business. You don't lose to the Bucks not even in the conference finals. Like you got it's like the super team of all super teams, and you couldn't even make the conference finals.
Nick, they weren't
even
playing
get there
the
to get
super
swept
team.
Or anything.
Kyrie Irving was
Harden was there
at like a convention probably.
Kyrie
Harden
plays when he wants, then don't get Kyrie because he's an asshole.
That's
why it was a loser team, and they're never going to win.
That's a loser team. The Nets suck. Forget about
that.
That
was a 50-50 game. You flip a coin. The Bucks were the winners. That's it. It's over.
They lost at home.
You don't need to think too much into it. You need to be, he's not LeBron James. Oh, Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's amazing. LeBron's the second best player all time.
It's not on Durant. It's not at all. He's the last one to blame. He's the only reason why they even made it to a Game 7. Otherwise, they would have been like Harden, ultimate loser. Kyrie, ultimate weirdo. That's just what they do. You put them together, and that's what's going to happen.
Wrong.
Like Durant I know he was the star of the Warriors in the finals in those games, but they're not getting there without Steph and the other dude. I forgot his name, the shooter, because he hasn't played in 10 years. Like they're not Durant's not getting to the finals without those guys. So there's something missing in Kevin Durant. I hate to say it. I've said it forever, but he's too much of an oddball and like a soft, nice guy. He tries to play like he's a tough guy, but he's not that guy, man. Like that's an ultimate letdown. I don't care. Like give me all the excuses you want. Make the conference finals. You didn't even get there. Forget the finals. Like that's an epic letdown. And Steve Nash sucks too. He has no business. So that's it. I don't give a shit about the Nets. I could care less.
Don't talk about
as an outsider.
Nash like that, please.
Forget Steve Nash.
Don't you ever refer to Steve Nash?
He'll never be Jason Kidd.
Oh my God. All right. This is where we end off. I would just like to say,
Bree, I pulled up because I was going to come in with some real heat. I'll wait till next week.
Kyrie Irving
wait till next year when the Nets don't win again, and we'll figure out who are they going to go get this year. The guy from the Clippers, what's his name? I always forget the fucking guy's name.
Kawhi?
Kawhi, another weirdo. They're going to go get him.
George Paul?
Like the ultimate, yeah.
Nick, what do you think of George Paul? George Paul
is too. Forget about him. Devin Booker's awesome. Luka's
awesome.
Trae Young
Suns are going to win it all.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's awesome that's been playing well the last 10 games. Yeah,
well, they're in the conference finals.
Yeah.
And they're not on Super
Trae Young's awesome after he had 48 points and 11 assists.
I said Trae Young was awesome when he spanked the Knicks,
I'm sure
which was awesome to see, too.
All right. We're done. Kyrie Irving.
That was fun. I haven't gotten excited about basketball in a while. I hated hearing about the Nets. As if anybody cares about them.
here in New York.
Nobody
could give
cares.
a shit, and they should be in New Jersey, and they should have the old jerseys and the old branding, because that was the worst move of any team to another city and another branding. The worst uniforms, the worst stadium. Well, MetLife's worse, but terrible arena, terrible uniforms. The colors are awful. This whole subway scheme they have, the Nets should be kicked out of the league. But
Nick, how do you describe MetLife Stadium? The humongous air conditioner.
Yeah, it's the worst.
It really does. All right, we got to get out of here. Frankie and I are both late for prior engagements. We got a potential series clinching game tonight in the NHL if you guys want something fun to watch. And with that being said, we are out of here. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. And that's that. Bye.
Timeout.